We can probably get started. I know there's a massive 16 people here, but I mean, the viewership's probably not going to be massive anyway, so I thought I'd just get started. There was a new patch for Artifact. I was just playing, and I knew the patch was coming out today, but I kind of forgot about it. I wasn't really planning to stream because I streamed like 12 hours of Dota yesterday, but I was already playing Artifact at the time, so I thought I'd do a little patch stream because I scrolled down and I read through everything and it was really nice. If you guys haven't read this yet, what I think is really cool about it is that Valve is doing a really good job explaining all of their thought processes. Thanks for the sub. They're going to have independent skill ratings for construction and draft games. I think that's really smart. It also includes an account leveling system, which tracks your overall experience of the game and allows you to unlock level icons and a set number of tickets and packs. So basically there is unlockable stuff. And there is more information on the update page, which I did click earlier, but I don't know if it ended up opening. So that's cool. Card balance. So this is basically a very long-winded to basically say we've listened to everybody, and pretty much we were, when designing the game, we were thinking of the physical card game approach, which is you don't really want to make too many card changes or bans because that's something physical, that's something that people have basically. So what they want to do instead is basically they had a long discussion internally about it because they saw they struggled to see the benefits of immutability in terms of the downsides in terms of a digital card game. So what they're going to do is they are going to make balance changes for cards, and then after they had thought about it, they realized that this is it was the wrong approach in the first place, and that it's going to be better off for the game if they can make balances and nerfs and stuff to things that need to be nerfed. Pretty similar to what happens in Dota, basically. They do crazy stuff sometimes and let creativity flow rampant, and then they nerf things to adjust for it, which is a good way to design the game, to balance it in a good way. So basically they're going to solve the balance problems, which is going to happen down here. So what is also cool is that based on the fact that people bought a bunch of cards that may be no longer worth the money, what you can do is you can sell back your cards, is what they're saying. Any player that previously purchased today's changed cards from the marketplace can now visit this link to learn how to sell the cards directly back to them, to Valve, for what their peak selling price was in the 24 hours prior to this announcement. Oh. I wish this was worded, any player that previously purchased today's changed cards within the past 24 hours can visit this link. Or, actually, you know what it actually does mean? I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding it. They're basically saying that whatever the peak price was in the last 24 hours, as long as you purchased any cards from the marketplace, you can sell them back to Valve right now for the price that was the peak in the last 24 hours. So whatever Axe was in the last 24 hours, you can sell it back to Valve directly right now and get your money back, which is a smart way to do it because people might have purchased with the impression that they were going to be good. So pretty much this is going to cost Valve money for sure. But I mean, the amount of cards that were bought and sold are probably a drop in the bucket, maybe, over the course of like people not being upset. So I think this basically solves almost all the issues now. It's gonna be more card variety. I really liked what they said about players that want variety as well. Where was it? Where is it? There we go. Players who focus a lot on deck building would prefer a more diverse and engaging meta player. That's me basically. I don't want to only play meta decks all the time. I don't want to feel like I have to put in a red hero a strong red hero every time to make sure that I can win. Anyways, so yeah, if you bought cards, you can sell them back for what they cost in the last 24 hours. So I guess if you underpaid, you could make straight Steam cash right now. If you decided you don't want to play Artifact anymore, you can sell all your cards back and get all your money back. But for the vast majority of people, I doubt we'll see many sales. Okay, so let's get into the patch. Axe's base stats changed. First thing I saw Axe, and what I thought was maybe reduces damage by 1 was my initial thought, because I don't think lowering his armor from 2 to 1 is worthwhile, because he's kind of unique in that way that he has 2 armor. I think, but they actually nerfed him in both ways. 1 less damage and 1 less health. This is actually pretty huge because I already tweeted about this, but I just played a Phantom Draft against an Axe, and he just got a Blink Dagger equipped, and then he just killed all my shit. It was kind of obnoxious. So lowering the damage by 1 is pretty huge, because when you have things like Duel and Berserker's Call, damage reduction is massive for limiting the ability for him to get 3 kills with a Berserker's Call. Now he has to equip an item and to be able to get kills. Also, 6 damage is pretty significantly less than 7. 6 damage is now like strong / mediocre damage. Are you whining already? You don't like it when I stream, do you? I'm sorry. She looks pretty pathetic right now. But losing health is also big. This means that you can kill Axe with a PA if you drop a Disciple round 1, for example. But other than that, Bounty Hunter will almost be able to kill Axe. He's 1 damage short now in round 1. But Axe is still pretty safe. I mean, effectively he has 12 health on round 1, which is actually the same as Kana. But he's still really strong. 6-2 and 10 is still really good, but it's less obscene. That's for sure. I think this is a nice change. This makes me feel more comfortable with the game, because every time I play against Axe, it just feels like a pain in the ass, man. The 2 armor is already so hard to deal with, so definitely feels a lot better. Bloodseeker, this was actually really neat. Bloodseeker is pretty garbage as a hero. Base stats changed, so he gets 1 more health. I think this really needed to happen as a whole. It was just too easy for Bloodseeker to die, right? Because if you go into a lane with Bloodseeker and you're fighting a creep, you're going to kill the creep. But if they use 4 damage of any kind, Bloodseeker dies. So it's really easy to get 4 damage. There's a lot of black spells that do it. There's so many spells actually that can increase your damage by 4. You could drop like a Legion, Standard Bearer. You could do like Thunderstorm. There's just so many ways that Bloodseeker would die. So I think this is a really nice change for Bloodseeker. They also lowered his signature spell by 1 mana. That's pretty fucking huge actually. This is by far a bigger change, I think. Even though this is really nice, I think this is the bigger change. Because Blood Rage is effectively a 4 damage nuke from a creep. It's also a silence. But it being 4 damage means that, or 4 mana means that on turn 4 now, you can deal 11 damage with Bloodseeker to an enemy hero. So that's pretty huge. You can basically guarantee that Bloodseeker gets a trade on a hero. I mean, you'll die in most cases, but this is a really big buff to Bloodseeker. A hero with a raw deal. I think it's also really important that they do. I'm really glad that they're buffing and nerfing stuff over time, though, especially because if they never change stuff, these are fucking heroes. You know, these are heroes that people have identities and like they love their Dota heroes, right? And Dota heroes change and become good and bad over time. But if Bloodseeker was just always bad forever, that would just be that's a huge downer, right? It puts more pressure on Valve to like create more content. But now if they keep their older stuff updated and change and fix things that are bad, then it's going to make the game better overall. And they won't have to create as much content. So I think that's really cool. Cheating Death mana cost change from 5 to 4. Okay. Old text, if there's an allied green hero, you have a 50% chance to live. New text, active, cooldown 1, give a unit a death shield this round. May only be used if there's an allied green hero in this lane. Okay, that's a really cool solution to the card. Before it was anything, right? It would work on creeps. It would work on all heroes. It would work on everything, basically. But now it is a number one. First of all, it's only 1 unit, and you also need to have initiative to play it before they try to kill your unit. So the card has certainly become significantly worse all of a sudden. Stacking Cheating Deaths on 1 lane is also going to be significantly worse now because you're going to have to cast it multiple times. Like if you have 2 Cheating Deaths, you'd have to cast it on 2 different units or twice on the same guy. It is like significantly worse now. But turn 4 is definitely going to make it a lot better actually. Because if you can pull this out on turn 2, I keep saying the wrong. I don't know. I should just say mana 4 or something. On mana 4, dropping a Cheating Death, you can easily keep a hero alive. Especially because you'd be playing it first if you have initiative, and it's just an improvement. Or you could play from a different lane and probably cast it before you die, as long as you had initiative. But I think this is a nice change. It makes the card more tactical, by all means. You just need to make sure that you have a green hero there, and you still could die, of course, which would then mean that you can't necessarily use it as well. So I think this is a really good change to Cheating Death, and definitely the card that people complain about the most. It's easier to play around now. It's less obnoxious. I just played against one, actually. Draw Ranger Gust, old text, silence enemy heroes. Now it's silence an enemy hero and its allied neighbors this round. This is a much better balance to the card. It being all heroes was a little too easy. Now there's some play potential if you're completely getting crushed in a lane, or if the enemy heroes are spread out. It's harder to land the Gust on everyone. Jasper Daggers were actually garbage. They really needed to fix them. plus 2 attack and pierce. They weren't worth 7 gold. 5. I would pay 5 for this personally. In the new text, equipped hero has plus 2 attack and pierce, so normal, and they even get more benefit. Equip effect, purge your opponent's effects from equipped hero. Okay, that's when you equip it. That's a cool little bonus. I thought it was going to be some kind of an active thing, but being able to just equip it and remove a disable or disarm is pretty awesome, actually. So you could say Jasper Daggers are now counters to Crystal Maiden, counters to Winter Wyvern, arguably, counters to Home Field Advantage. One thing I really like Jasper Daggers for, and I think this is one of the places that it works best, is with low cleave heroes. So if you put them on somebody that has cleave, it makes even your cleave damage pierce. So even if you're only cleaving for 2, you could guarantee that cleave goes through. So I think this is super reasonable now. There's definitely some decks where Jasper Daggers can become core. 7 was just too much. It's like, how do you justify this? How do you justify paying 4 more gold than a short sword? In many cases, it was situational before, but I could definitely see some decks where this works. With Retaliate, this would be really good too. On like Legion Commander, Retaliate, Jasper Daggers is really good for that. Especially if your opponents also have cleave. If they cleave you, you will retaliate damage to them, and therefore that would be pierce if you have Jasper Daggers. So with the right heroes, I would definitely put these in some of my decks that are themed around like retaliation or cleave. Lion, Finger of Death active ability, 8 piercing damage to a unit. Okay, and now it's going to have a new effect, Quicken. When it's cast, the cooldown reduces by 1. This just makes Lion significantly better now. The problem with Lion before is that his stats are actually really good. 6 and 5 I think is super value. It's not like incredibly good, but it's good. If you put a cloak on that guy, 6 and 9 is really good, I think, for a typical Black Hero survivability level. And his ability, his active ability is really good. Finger of Death is really good, but the problem is it's four turn cooldown, which means that when you use, you basically only get 1 Finger of Death in a constructed game. And in draft, it's like they can dodge the lane. It's like your stats aren't strong enough to justify not using your active. Like if you're not using your active online, you're probably gonna have a bad time. So the fact that it can reduce cooldown now is so much better. Because even going from a 4 to a 3 is really good. That means by turn 7, basically, that's like, what, 10 mana? You'd have a second Finger of Death instead of having to wait till 11 mana. So you're not going to ever really get it down to 1 in almost all cases. Almost never is that going to happen. But this is a really cool way to solve the problem of making it come off cooldown a little bit later, a little bit faster, but not make it broken at 3 cooldown, or not having to like reduce the damage or remove the piercing or something. This is a really good solution to Lion. I still would not play him, I guess. I definitely still wouldn't play him. As cool as this looks, because it's still going to take very long to get the finger off cooldown. But it's certainly a little better. I think Bloodseeker got buffed way more, and for reference. Okay. OD's base stats changed. I don't think 1 HP is going to be enough to make OD viable, but this is certainly a nice improvement. One of the unique things about OD is that he's one of the few heroes to have 4 damage as a blue hero. The only other one is Meepo. To my knowledge, that's blue. Almost everyone. I mean, Luna could potentially kill if she gets a Lucent Beam on her target, but so he can kill creeps, but his card is still a bit iffy. I don't think this is going to be enough for OD to become relevant, to be honest. It's still pretty garbage, but it would definitely make it's starting to make OD look more appealing than Crystal Maiden in the right deck, I think. Because having a whole 2 health and 2 strength, or 2 damage and 2 health, more than Crystal Maiden, is already making him borderline appealing. Even though OD on average gives you 1 mana per spell cast, and it's blue spell only, I think. So, whereas Crystal Maiden's any spell. So for draft, I'm sure there's no way that CM's not better. For constructed, CM's also probably better, but I don't know. Maybe OD will get another buff. We'll see. We'll see. Well, we'll see. Excuse me. You think Lion's much better now for a long term? He is. But if your games are going up to like I very rarely get games where I go up to like 12 or 14 mana or some shit. That almost never happens. It's pretty rare, to be honest. Doesn't happen very often. Games like that, yeah, line would be good. And maybe there's some... I have an idea. What about a line deck where you go for lots of tower regen? You just delay the game so you can just Finger of Death constantly every turn. That'd be cool. There's a deck to make. I'll make that deck later. Timbersaws, reactive armor, old text, 1 armor for each of his attackers. Plus 1 armor for each of his attackers, and each of Timbersaw's attackers have -1 armor. This is a huge buff to Timbersaw. Timbersaw was more or less garbage before. He wasn't like garbage, he was like very situationally useful. The only time I liked him was if I had a lot of red and not very much wave clear, because Whirling Death is a wave clear hero card. This is a pretty huge buff though. This makes pick a fight with Timbersaw like massively better, like actually so good, because you could have 3 heroes attack or 3 units attack you, and then everybody's armor is lowered by 1. Then when you use a Whirling Death, you'll increase the damage by 1. The other thing that's really nice about it actually is that Whirling Death does regular damage, it's not piercing. So anybody that has armor is just awful. Like Whirling Death just becomes really bad instantly. If they have 1 armor, it's like Whirling Death just sucks right away. But now at least you can amplify the Whirling Death a bit. If they have 1 armor, you can offset it by taunting, for example. So I think this is a really cool change. Very cool, a very creative way to make Timbersaw better. It also means that if Timbersaw also gets 1 more damage, arguably, but this is a better way to do it because it'll increase your the damage dealt to opponents. You could also argue that you could get what's that one item that lowers 2 armor? It lowers the armor of your targeted opponent by 2. You could get that card, and then if you're face to face with somebody, they'd have -3 armor, which is kind of cool. I'm sure you could make decks with that. Like I don't see why you wouldn't put Timbersaw in a deck with like, you wouldn't necessarily have to, but Timbersaw plus Ogre Magi, for example, is so good right now. Actually, that is an amazing. That combo became ridiculous all of a sudden with Timbersaw, just because you can increase your ignite damage by 1 for people that are attacking Timbersaw. It's only at the start of the round, I guess, so it doesn't quite work out as abusive, but for any unit that's across from Timber, it's a lot better. Ristool emblem. I think it's Ristool. Ristool emblem? Ristool, not Ristool. Riztool? I don't know. Really cool change. A very boring change, but probably fair, considering the card could become overpowered, potentially. The line change is really cool. Jasper Dagger's change is super cool. The Drow change is super fair, not unfair. Cheating Death got the biggest nerf, I think. But it did go down in mana cost, so it also got a buff. Bloodseeker's buff is pretty solid here, and the Axe nerf was very strong. But just looking at these numbers honestly it really stresses me out, genuinely. Like, playing against an Axe is so hard. You just have to be like, well, I'm going to lose that lane. Like, what I had to do to play against Axe, I still lost, I think, barely, but I basically had to like get him to commit resources to the lane, and then I needed to eject and go to a different lane. And it kind of worked out, but then he had a Blink Dagger, and he was getting hero kills and stuff. I almost won. It was really close. He assassinated one of my heroes, and then I played the 25/25 creature, and then he also had a Slay. He had exactly 3 mana, so he happened to have a Slay in his hand. So that was too bad. All right, new features. Added skill rating. Skill rating is specific to a particular time period in game mode, draft or constructed, and ranges from 1 to 75. Once you've earned a rating, it will not decrease this season. Every matchmaking game outside of the Called Arms featured event contributes to skill rating adjustments. Okay. Added account levels and unlocks. Every matchmaking game grants experience that contributes to account level. Increasing account level unlocks portraits and a number of event tickets and card packs. Added the Quicken keyword on activated abilities, means reduce cooldown by 1, but not below 1. See Finger of Death. Added Equip effect keyword. This is the Jasper Daggers. New words to learn. Quicken. Quicken loans. It's very hard not to say Quicken loans. Bug fixes. Fix some words being underlined or ability tooltips in game. Fix the complete deck list not being visible for the opponent. Fix some instances of Redimus Pillager not showing their combat target arrows after being spawned. Minor bugs and issues. Updated localization files. All right. Okay, thank you. All right. Yeah, Axe is honestly still very good. Still a very good hero. It's just seems not like quite as hard to deal with. Like the difference of 1 damage sometimes is huge, because it might be like, oh, my Berserker's Call is going to kill all 3 heroes, or it'll be like, oh, my Berserker's Call is going to almost kill 1 hero, but kill the other. Like it's so different, man. It's so huge.